or if we reach over 200 people in the session, it's possible for you to just listen to the session through the YouTube channel. So this was one of the tricks I use in conferences to avoid having the webinar account, because when you speak in a webinar, you can't see the people. Personally, I hate it, and you can't interact. Okay, so with your permission, I will start record the session, and you will be able to start. We'll be recording on my computer, and again, my recording will be shared with Gunter, and you do whatever you want with this raw material. I will edit it and make it available on our YouTube channel. I put the link on your YouTube channel in the chat for those who want to see what happened. So we have around 60 videos in it, from around 2 hours each one, about several topics. And here the small story about what is the meaning of Agile praxis. Agile doesn't mean Agile methodologies. You have to understand Agile like a new way of working, or maybe the new challenges. And praxis means what to do in what particular moment in time. So it's not a clinic. So here we are sharing with a lot of people like Aaron from the States, and we have a lot of people from all around the world, and mostly a senior level, and even Rian, you are senior for us. And so all intentions are great. So the mood is usually quite respectful. The only badass, it's me. And feel free to ask the question if you want. And the floor is Gunter's. And I put myself on mute, and that's your show now.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Pierre. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm assuming that you chose the word praxis because it's a German word.
Not at all. No? The German word we say it means clinic, but it's more the Greek one. Praxis is like kairos. It means what to do in what particular moment in time.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to be a very smart, I say we believe in kairology instead of chronology. So yes. This is some kind of sentence you can bring to Dave Snowden to have a smart guess. No, kairos just okay. Now I mute myself.
That's okay. Thanks, Pierre. And I think we planned this session like a really long time ago, at least 6 or 7 months ago. But it's fine. That's one of the. I don't know how anybody else sees that. It's one of the few positive sides of the COVID thing that's happening to us. The fact that I've been in so many online webinars and meetups and so on, and been able to connect with so many people. So I recently counted. I think I'm going to end up with at least 30 online webinars that I've been in. That's good. Imagine that I would have had to do that with traveling, so not online. It would have been sort of madness. That's cool. And if we then sometimes we try to plan these things intelligently, that means we can have people from up to the US until Asia, depending a little bit on their time zone. So thanks, Pierre, for inviting me. Hello, everybody. Depending a little bit on where you're from, Dan, you're from New York City, I think. So you're sort of 6-7 hours ahead of us, or after us.
It's my lunch break, so middle of the day over here.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So depending on where you're from, a good day, a good evening, a good afternoon, a good something. So thanks very much for being here. I'm sort of glad that I'm virtually in Heidelberg, because we've got good friends living. I don't know, Pierre, whether you know the little town. It's called Heddesheim. It's not too far from Heidelberg. So we've been there a couple of times. Because we've got, for some strange reason, we've got a good friend of ours in Germany living in Heddesheim, and he has some sort of high financial position at SAP, where I know, Pierre, you're doing quite some work. He has nothing to do with Scrum. He's a tax person. He's involved in international taxes and so on. So totally not my world.
Or maybe I know him because I did the finance transformation of the finance department from SAP.
Oh. Okay. Well, he's called Klaus, if ever you would. Whatever. There's many Klauses.
Oh, we have a Klaus as a guest here.
Yeah, that's true. Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello from spaceship.
Hi.
Oh, you've got a friend with you. Okay, cool. So Pierre, what I wanted to talk about is what I call what it means for me to humanize a workplace with Scrum. And I've got some things. I've got a presentation prepared, so I'll do that. I hope we can also do a couple of small sort of exercises, think over a couple of questions in breakout rooms. So it will help us do a little bit more of interaction. And to guide you mostly in the breakout rooms, I've also created something on the Mentimeter. I don't know whether you know that, but we'll figure it out. So if you're okay, let me start sharing the material I've prepared. So what it means to humanize the workplace, and that is quite an important thing for me. Actually, it's maybe very personal, I don't know, but it seems to resonate with a lot of people. So I'm gonna assume that there's a sort of need for that. And it connects a little bit to this thing. So I live in Antwerp in Belgium. Which is sort of also the heart of Europe, it seems. And I work in my home office a lot of the time. And in my home office, I've got this little box, it's glued on the wall. It's next to the door. And I don't know when I bought it a very long time ago, but I like this thing that's on the box. Life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And why do I like that? Because and I like to replace life sometimes with Agile and Scrum. Agile and Scrum are also not about finding it or finding what it is, but more about creating things. And why is it important? Because I don't know whether you know those people also maybe in your organizations or in your teams that sort of just sit on their chair all day long, complain about things that are not happening. Things are not happening to them, things that are happening to them, blaming others, putting sort of the guilt in other people's shoes and so on. I'm more like, yeah, but what about doing something? What about trying to do something about stuff? And that's what I mean with life is about creating yourself. Now, this thing that I call myself as independent Scrum caretaker, that's what I started calling myself. So Pierre, the last time we met was probably 2014, 2015 in I believe in Paris. And in 2016, I left a little company called Scrum.org. I assume most people know. So the organization of Ken Schwaber was partnering with Ken, doing lovely stuff, maintaining coursewares, maintaining assessments, building stuff around new ideas and so on. And still I left because I wanted to be out there again, work with teams, sort of get my feet on the ground and not be cut off from daily praxis in a way, Pierre, to reuse your words. And so I left, and then I got in the situation. You know, all these things. We're all on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you have to give yourself a title or a function description. And I had started my little one-person company, so my home office back in 2013. When I left Capgemini, where Pierre and I once, it seems, met a long time ago. And so I left Capgemini, where I was called a principal consultant, whatever is in that name. And I left that to work with Ken 3 years later, stopping my sort of exclusive partnership with Ken, to sort of be really sort of self-employed on my own 2 feet. And the company I started back in 2013, make that sort of my complete business. And I had to give myself a name or a title. And as I'm only a one-person company, probably for a very brief moment, I considered calling myself the CEO or the founder and owner of my company. But I think that's kind of silly because I'm just a one-person company. Because I also do the cleaning. I am also the help desk agent. I have to fix all of my PCs when they run into trouble. So I'm also the CFO and whatever. So I decided let me think about how do I feel I am? What do I feel that I'm doing? And that's when I came up with the idea of I feel like being a Scrum caretaker, meaning not just caring for Scrum, But also, hopefully, the word caretaker also reflects the idea of working with people, human beings, so caring for people too. Afterwards, I added independent to that to make sure that everybody knew that I'm not a part of any fixed structure, whatever. I'm just on my own 2 feet. And like I said, life is not about finding things, it's about creating yourself. I didn't come onto this world thinking as from day one, long time ago, that's 50 years ago, I'm 50 years old. That explains the color of my beard, Pierre. I didn't come onto in this world thinking I'm going to be an independent Scrum caretaker on the journey and so on. No, that's something that grew. What I did learn from myself, that it's in all of my professional life and outside of that, certainly professional life, also before Scrum, I have this this sort of fixation, but it's called a healthy fixation on people. Working with people, respecting people, trying to get the most out of people, try to create happy people, engaged people, satisfied people. Whether there are people in the teams that I've worked with, whether they were stakeholders, whether they were users, whether they were customers as a consultant, whether they were my managers, I don't care. It's sort of all about people. And so I sort of create this thing for myself, independent Scrum caretaker, on my little journey. And the great thing about this journey, it's a never-ending journey. It's an infinite game. It will never stop. I will never be successful. And that's sort of a relief that comforts me, knowing that I'm onto something that will never be successful. So that's good. I will never completely humanize the whole world and workplaces. But I think, Pierre, like you said, a long time ago, Capgemini involved with Agile transformations. So I've been in this Scrum thing since 2003. That is over 17 years ago. Although the funny thing is, I don't know whether, but Scrum is turning 25, by the way. So I'm lucky to have been in sort of 17 years of Scrum. Although my life of Scrum didn't start with Scrum. I can't stop repeating that. It started with something called extreme programming, which is so beautiful, so powerful. Nobody knows about it anymore. That's why I keep just reminding people, if you want to know something, read about extreme programming. So powerful, so great, so beautiful. But at least my life of Scrum didn't start with Scrum. But I've been doing this for 17 years. Spent first 7 years in just here in Belgium. And then as from 2010, 2011, a lot of times spent in the Netherlands, which certainly a couple of large financial institutions, working for large consulting company, Capgemini. And then in my time with Ken Schwaber, working with people across the world, trainers, coaches, customers, organizations, really great. And in all of these years, I've seen quite some things with people wanting to go through whatever they call a transformation. And what I miss in most of them is what I tried to put in this slide. That these are for me, if you want to go through a transformation, whether it's an agile transformation or a digital transformation or whatever transformation, these are for me, this is sort of agile premises to any sorts of agile organizational transformation. And that sort of any transformation should, for me, build on the idea, here we go again, people, on the idea and my belief that people are naturally agile. You might run into these situations where you've got agile coaches, leadership managers, whatever, maybe even Scrum Masters, whatever, trying to tell you to be agile. There's no need to do that because every single human being is agile. We are able to be agile. We demonstrate our agility in our personal lives all the time. We adapt, we change, we get new insights, we try out stuff. We don't plan our life like 5 years ahead in time. And then try to stick to that plan for the next 5 years. We're sort of naturally agile. And anything with regards to transformation should start on that belief for me. And that belief is also, it's about every individual human being, regardless of where that human being lives. Whether that is in my country, Belgium, or in Heidelberg, or in Germany, France, in Asia, in the US, New York City, whatever. Human beings are naturally agile. End of discussion. And that's, I don't think that's respected enough. And if you then think about transforming organizations and introducing anything called process or framework or whatever, whether that's Scrum or something else, any process should build on that natural ability of people to be agile. It should sort of wrap around that, build a frame for that. That's for me, honestly, the intention of Scrum. That was what Scrum tries to do. Capitalize on the natural agility of people. Just frame that a little bit, give that a bit of structure and direction. And the most difficult thing with Agile and other sorts of transformations is the fact that if you're going to rethink your structures, organizational structures, it should build on that process, which should build in that sense also on people's natural ability to be agile. It's what I miss a lot, and that's for me the essence. And maybe not too easy, but for me Scrum is exactly that.
Excuse me for a moment. Can we ask some questions about that?
Yes, yeah, of course.
If you could get back to the previous slide. I'm not sure if I correctly get you. You mean that if we create a transformation, or if we create some idea to transforming some organization, then of course the first sentence is I connect with this with my heart. The second, you mean the first step should be the process, and then organizing structure around the process. This is the does it matter, that the process is before structure? This is what you mean, or I didn't get it?
No, the idea is sort of the following. In a lot of agile transformations, nobody dares touching organizational structures, departments, silos, functional separation of people, and so on. And my idea is that if you would introduce Scrum, it should first of all build on that ability of people to be agile, sort of not too instructive on what people should do. So Scrum is not a methodology. And then again, the courage to sort of rethink the structures around the process. And in my world of Scrum, what I see a lot is that people have this tendency to sort of twist and change Scrum to better fit the existing structures. And in my view, it should be the other way around. If you want to introduce Scrum and you want to realize all of the benefits of Scrum, people should rethink the structures around Scrum. And that's sort of what I try to say here. Yeah.
So the case is organize your structure around the process you want to follow instead of, that's, thank you very much for this.
So Gunther, just to dovetail on what Tomas was saying, I think this is not necessarily a stepwise linear process that you're describing here on this slide. No. You're just saying these are realities that must be respected and honored in order to derive the most value from this endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I bring them up is because most of these 3 points are sort of never, let's say, enacted in any sort of transformation. It is imposed on people. It starts from existing structures. It's full of instructions. There's no belief in the agility of people or the
additional
people involved.
Processes to support the old structure. Yeah, that's the normal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the idea, a lot of, even in agile transformations, that a lot of people think that they still need to tell other people what to do, rather than give people guidance, maybe work with objectives and create a frame or boundaries within which people can work. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. So a while ago, that was one of the other positive outcomes for me from the COVID experience, at least. I created a little paper that was I started in March and April. It is called Moving Your Scrum Downfield. Because like just preceding this, Pierre, we were talking about it, this sort of tendency of people to overanalyze the nitty-gritty details and words and whatever of the Scrum guide. And then people often get stuck already. They're not even doing Scrum, or while they're trying to do Scrum or apply Scrum, they totally get stuck on trying to interpret the rules and the words of the Scrum guide. I like, Scrum is 25 years old. What about trying to move what I call your or our Scrum downfield, do a little bit more, rather than be stuck in that Scrum and push and a little bit forward, a little bit back. What about really moving our Scrum downfield? So let's say up the field. And at the bottom, that was sort of the definition of Scrum that drove me throughout that paper. meaning Scrum a simple framework that enables people to derive value from complex challenges. Because one of the things also that I've seen, certainly in my classes and workshops, I've seen a lot of people from a non-software background, or organizations that are not in software, not in IT, and not even in new product development, they want to adopt Scrum. So I've seen a lot of people that see the value of Scrum in helping them address complexity, where their complexity is often not software development, not product development, not product creation. So that's why I wanted to talk about complex challenges in general. Now, I don't want to go into the simple and the complex, but I want to talk about today about humanizing workplace and how to connect that idea of value and people. But for me, what's for me important in my little definition, it's on the edge of being too complicated, by the way, but it's got those four aspects: simplicity versus complexity, and then it's about value, not about volume, but about value. And it's all there for people. It's not just, that's something I miss in those first 25 years of Scrum. That's why I call it myself a Scrum caretaker. It's overly focused on sort of technically, in that sense, building products, which is a really great purpose. But what about the people? What about engaging people more? And so I want to talk about that value aspect a little bit first. And that's also from my paper. Value is a very different driver than volume is. I don't know whether you guys recognize that, but a lot of companies, oh yeah, we're now going to do Scrum, meaning we'll be able to produce more features sooner, faster, and so on. Yeah, but that might still be the wrong features. That might still be features that are not appreciated, that are not being used. So value, that's for me outcome, where volume is more like output. You can create more output, but the outcome of your output may be totally off. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Yeah, and the shift, and this is one of the things I've worked on with Ken Schwaber several years ago. So something that we called Agility Path. I don't know if anybody knows that. I would be surprised, but because we were really great at creating great stuff, and then making sure that nobody understood it or knew about it or found out. That really get with those strange people. But anyhow, the idea of Agility Path was sort of the following. I started calling it more like empirical management or exploratory management. It was a framework to introduce Scrum using Scrum, meaning working in sprints, working with backlogs and so on, involving people, very team-centric rather than individual-centric and so on. And one of the underlying messages for that we had for leadership is to stop embarrassing or irritating teams by checking in on the performance of teams. How fast are you doing? Are you living up to your estimates? Whatever. Thinking in terms of volume again. And we tried to shift their mind away from how the team was performing to the outcome of the work they were doing. So not how much work are you doing, but what is the impact that your work has? And that's what we call value instead of volume. And I often compare it to the idea of looking at a car, and as management or as leadership, rather than looking at the engine of the car all the time, how powerful is the engine, looking at, are we driving in the right direction? How about hindrances and blockages and impediments along the road? What sort of road are we driving on? Because if you're driving on a cobblestone path that's full of turns and that has stops and signs and blockages all the time, it makes no point to have a Formula One type engine, because we're so overly focused on performance. So that was sort of the idea, to get management and leadership to move away from performance of the car, of the team, the engine, towards, are we driving in the right direction? Towards, are we producing the right stuff? Are we driving east, west, north, whatever? How is the road ahead? Can we do something about that? That was sort of the idea. And that should be reflected in the idea. Again, it's always about Scrum. At the sprint review, rather than checking with people, asking people to justify and assessing and judging people for their tasks and their estimates and velocity. How much points did you deliver? How much points did you burn? Checking in at sprint review about how much value did this team or these teams potentially create in this sprint? And the idea is also that sort of the external parameters to look at Scrum for stakeholders at the review is not individuals, tasks, and estimates. It's about the team as a whole, the sprint as a whole, and not value instead of volume and velocity or points burned. That was sort of the idea. Now let me go to my Mentimeter. If you're okay with that. So I've got this Mentimeter prepared. I'm going to start it. You can see my screen, right? Yeah. And then open the voting. And I would like to do the following. So on the screen, you see the Mentimeter. So you see the code. I would love you to take 5 minutes in a breakout room that Pierre, I think you can set up. Yeah. I hope you don't mind being arbitrarily assigned to other people and teams. But can you take 5 minutes to help me think about value? If the purpose of Scrum is to deliver value or increase your ability to deliver value, if our idea of Agility Path was to help leadership and management think in terms of value instead of volume, how would we then define value? What would value mean? And in your 5 minutes in the breakout room, please make sure that after 5 minutes it will be over, so you will join us in the main room again. And then hopefully you've entered a couple of keywords at least. And anybody can enter 3 keywords. Yeah? Are you okay doing that in a breakout room with 3, 4 people, breakout rooms of 5 people?
Okay, we'll manage that. How long?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, fine.
Yeah, it will also get you a chance to talk a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then maybe have you worked with value maybe before, and how do you see that?
Okay, so I see what my system is doing. If I want to create a room, I want to have more rooms here. How much people do you want? 2, 3?
Yeah, how many people do we have on the call? Sort of 20, I don't know, whether 4 or 5 breakout rooms, maybe 5, that'll end up with around 4 people.
Okay, let's do 5, it's 4 or 5 people. Or let's make it more, I give 6 room is 3 to 4 participants per room. And if you updated your Zoom, you are able also to move around, go away from this main room, and you can come back. It's up to you. 5 minutes, and you just saying at what moment in time I ship everyone in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, okay.
Is it now? No.
Yeah, go.
Okay. Best of luck. Okay, I want to pause the recording. The live is still live, so I can stop the live if you have private conversations.
No, really.
I'm fascinating because it's very funny the way you're addressing it, because it's very similar. I guess we're thinking about the same thing, about more and more about the people, and less about the process as per se. And again, I learned from, I don't know if it's true, from Mike Biddle. He told me Scrum has been initially designed for organizational development.
Okay.
And I found the way that Scrum, the simple rules as an organization, just 3 rules, nothing more. And you can roll out everywhere in the company at every level. I had a board of directors using Scrum as a way of doing things, which is just how we organize work. Without adding more and more roles into it, we can complexify the thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know whether that's true. Maybe Mike said it because he wanted to promote enterprise Scrum. I don't know. I do know that when we talked about when we created Agility Path at Scrum.org, we before we ended up with the name Agility Path, we were looking to how are we going to name this thing? And one of the options was sort of enterprise Scrum, because it was a transformation framework that helped people rethink the organization around Scrum. But we couldn't use enterprise Scrum because that was trademarked by Mike, obviously.
But I'm not sure, because at the beginning, Ken wrote a book about enterprise Scrum.
Yeah, but it was called Scrum and the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And indeed, he brought in some of the ideas of his book into what then turned out to be Agility Path.
Yeah. And when I say Agility Path, I don't know if I know what you talked about, because it rings a bell for me. Or is it yours, or is it the early intention from Diane Larsen?
Oh, I don't know. But it might be, I don't know, maybe in that Scrum Day Paris where we met. Maybe I talked about Agility Path, but I don't think so. Because I think by then I talked about Scaled Professional Scrum and the Nexus framework.
Yeah, I don't really remember at all. I'm getting old. I'm older than you, so I'm 55. Shit.
Oh, really? Well, my beard is longer then.
Yes, because I'm not accepting my age. So when it's become so white, I have to shave it a little bit because it's too white.
Okay. But that's a good thing. I keep saying to my family and my kids even that I'm still 17.
Oh, you're older than me then. My big victory is when my youngest daughter, she was 5, I say, Daddy, can you stop kidding? You're not serious. I don't want to be serious. Okay, geotig and simplify. Please put yourself on mute.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to go in a room?
Okay.
Okay, you're listening only. Okay, I will try to make you on mute a little bit. Okay, you're on mute. Lovely. Thank you so much. Oh, it's fascinating. So we have a big conversation, like also with Daniel Mesick, who is complaining that Agile has become very waterfall.
Yeah. He's the one from the Agile Industrial Complex sort of.
Yeah, no, I love. Yeah, he's a good friend. I love. He is still in passion, and react this passion. Like, I want to make a revolution, but for my own sake, I'm right, you're wrong. Okay. No, he's a funny, very great guy. So I'm closing the breakout rooms now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Welcome back.
Does he then stop and start recording automatically? Or do you know?
No, I have to push the button.
Ah, okay.
And when I have a Google Live, so usually I put music, because then I have a notification from YouTube. They say you're not allowed to use that music. Then I can trim that part automatically. So it's my trick. Welcome back.
Okay, great. And I see some stuff coming in at the Mentimeter too. In the meantime, welcome Peter Vader. I think he was entering, right? He's a fellow trainer. Okay, so let me share. You can all see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So this is you can still enter stuff if you want. So what would be value for you? So value for the customer, it's flow, benefits, bigger effort, living, calling, solving the right customer satisfaction. It's a flow experience. Okay, it's in the increment, it's iterative. Okay, cool. Thanks Thanks for bringing those ideas up. I hope you had a lovely time in your breakout room, getting to know each other and some great conversations. So when we created that thing called Agility Path, and Pierre and I were just talking about it back in those days. That's almost, I think it's 5 years ago, 2014, maybe 2015, when you created it. We were thinking about names also. We ended up with the idea of agility is a path. It's a journey. It's not an end goal. So we ended up calling it Agility Path, and we wanted to help people think about value. And make it a little bit more tangible than what I just said. So we and that's sort of where my creativity ends. I use the idea of KPIs, so key performance indicators. I believe most people know that, the most abused thing in the world, where an indicator becomes an objective, which is sort of the other way around. I called it key value indicators. So helping people think about what would you call value? Because if you're trying to shift people's focus away from volume to value, you have to give them some ideas. And I call them samples, because you have to think about value in your own context, maybe your own domain, your own products, your consumers base on your market and so on. But in general, at sort of the highest level, in general, value is often for companies or stakeholders, whatever, something with money, a financial return, a benefit, a profit, market share, revenues, something with sales and so on, or at least also something with customer satisfaction. So in that sense, value for the organization via the stakeholders, also value for the users, consumers, buyers, might be expressed as customer satisfaction. And what is often forgotten, I believe, is what about value also for the people doing the work? It's not just for people receiving the work. It's not just for people funding the work, but it's also for the people doing the work. In that sense, let me make it a little bit more tangible. What is the point of having a high financial return on your product development in terms of benefit, profits, and so on, even when that is combined with a high customer satisfaction, if your people leave your company all the time? If your people resign, go away, are not happy, suffer from burnouts, depressions, not really sustainable pace, and so on. So that makes no point. So if you think about value for the people receiving the work, value for the people funding the work, and value for the people doing the work. And then next to that, we thought about parameters, key value indicators. How about the ability to sustain your value? And that's what I called adaptability. What is the point of having a high current value in terms of finance, money, customer satisfaction, and team engagement or team satisfaction? What's the point if you can only do, an extreme example, one release a year? Because it means in the 12 months from this release to the next, you're blindfolded. You have no idea where you stand. You think you're still in a high value position, but that might be going totally down the drain. So sort of current value, ability to sustain value or sustained value, but also the idea of new value. What about introducing Scrum and an Agile way of working, not to just have high value and be able to sustain that value, but to free up time, people, energy, resources, whatever, to think about new value, to innovate. So not just introducing Scrum to do more, and still burn out people and still build the things that nobody appreciates. But what about also going for new ideas and discover new ways of value? That was sort of the idea. Now at the highest level, the current value, that in itself is already difficult enough. And then the idea, as you can see, of Agility Path was the following. It's, Scrum, it's all about inspection, adaptation. So it's all about feedback loops. This was about adding a feedback loop on top of your Scrum. So you've got your Scrum zone, all your people, all your teams doing Scrum. It's about adding a feedback loop on top of that. And that was the idea of not just measuring value once, but measuring it again and again and again, so that you have that regular inspection. And then again, it's not about just inspecting, it's about what are you going to do with that? And I'll come back on that later on. But at least helping people think about how would you inspect that you're actually delivering value? by measuring money, customer satisfaction, and so on. So that was sort of the idea. So that was the value aspect of Scrum. And I'll tie that back to, I'll tie the people aspect later back to value. Yeah, but you already know it's about team engagement. Now, what I've seen in my years of Scrum and in certainly the 25 years of Scrum, what is quite fascinating, and that is, by the way, quite a huge achievement, but that process aspect of Scrum is being embraced, meaning empirical management as a replacement for old school predictive or waterfall, linear, whatever management. Meaning being able to regularly stop, reflect, learn, gather feedback, and improve. That sort of technical aspect of the process of Scrum that is being embraced more and more and more. That's really cool. That is huge. That is amazing. But I see many companies still struggling with that people aspect of Scrum. And why do I put it like this? Because for me, Scrum's DNA, so not just the rules of Scrum, but Scrum's DNA is combined from that string of DNA, has two aspects, meaning, first of all, that process aspect, empiricism, or empirical process control, the process of regularly inspecting and adapting. But Scrum's DNA is also contains this aspect of self-organization. People working within boundaries, but organizing their own work, managing their own work, organizing for their own work. And that seems to be very difficult. It means people, organizations have difficulties of letting go. And there's a huge need to focus on the people aspect. Why do I say that? Because over the past couple of years, I've been talking about this a lot. This is the result of a survey by the Gallup Institute. It's a US-based institute. They do regularly surveys across the world. And they check in with people. They do surveys to check in with people about their level of engagement. In Scrum terms, you could call that commitment. And what they find across the world, and across the world, on average, only 15% of people indicate that they're really engaged for the company or by the company. Meaning they feel inspired by the company, they go to work sort of with a happy face, they're happy to go all the way for their work. Now, Pierre, you're in Heidelberg. Heidelberg is Germany. I live in Antwerp, Belgium. That is so far still Western Europe. In Western Europe, it's even worse. In Western Europe, only 10% of the workforce indicates that they're really engaged. So that's not really great, because it means that on average across the world, and even in the better scoring regions, it's still 70% of people say that they're not really engaged for their work. Meaning, I go to work to sit there 9 to 5, spend my days sitting in the office, go home, and then finally can do the things I really like to do, as long as I get paid or whatever. And that's a really sad thing, because it means there's an enormous amount of people across the world that spend a large portion of their life doing something they don't like, they don't want to be engaged in, they're not getting any fun, any energy out of it. And what is even the worst thing of that survey is that across the world, 18% of people say that they're negatively engaged, actively disengaged. So imagine a company of 1,000 people. Of 1,000 people, only 150 people say, yeah, I believe in my own company. I buy into what we do. I believe in our mission, our vision. I'm really inspired. I come to work being a happy person. Yeah, Pierre, go ahead.
I have a question from Wally. You wanted to know how we define engagement.
Well, engagement is it's in the survey, so they have this sort of list of questions they send around. You can look that up, by the way. This is freely available. The result of the survey, the last one is from 2017. Have a look. It's in a number of questions that they have, checking in with people on a couple of things.
Oh, I guess the last one is for 2018, and the problem is not getting better.
Yeah. The last time they published it was 2017, and overall the years that they've done this, it's like it's not changing drastically. It has improved a couple of percent points or percentages, but that's about it.
So what I know is Germany is 14% of people engaged at work. 14. Netherlands 7. France 5.
Oh,
yeah.
But what strikes me a little bit is that Latin America and post-Soviet Eurasia is so high, and Middle East is even 14%. I don't think this. I can't believe the data. I mean, maybe there are some cultural perspectives in it.
Yeah, there might be, but what for me counts is sort of this. I when I go out work with organizations, I recognize these levels of disengagement, the enormous amounts of people. So I'm not looking really into the exact figures, to be honest, because even if it was correct in the US, in Canada, that wow, even 31% of people are really engaged, that still means about 70% of people not really engaged or even negatively engaged. So the amount of people not engaged is still a lot bigger. So that's how I sort of use this. It seems in the survey also, by the way, that in let's say that we do knowledge work. So in knowledge work that you need your brain for, cognitive work, it seems that the level of engagements are higher, meaning up to 25 and sometimes even 30%. But again, that still means that even in knowledge work, 70% of people doing knowledge work not really caring about what they do. And that's such a pity, because it means that a lot of your working week is spent on doing something you don't really like.
I love this document, so I'm very happy that you use it, because I use it all the time. So I'm not feeling alone. and having, yes, the idea of more engagement. It's not this empowerment is maybe something linked to engagement. Engagement is you're feeling your place to fulfill, to bring a value. So meaning, one of the questions when you hire someone, you ask the question, how much money do you need? So money is no longer a problem for you, meaning I give you the possibility to come with a full yourself to change the organization. This is, you create some kind of engagement and ensure some kind of empowerment to ensure engagement. Engagement is, you don't need to have a clock Monday in the morning to go at work. You're super excited to go at work because this fulfills life.
I like the term engagement, because in Scrum we use the term commitment. It's one of the Scrum values. I like engagement slightly more because it has more like a positive feel to it. But it is actually commitment. How committed are you? And commitment doesn't mean that you're making hardcore promises over certain results. It means that you're working hard, you're doing your best, you're doing the best you can within an environment of sustainable pace. But that's commitment. Like, yeah, I want to work hard. I believe I'm going to struggle. I don't mind struggling. I don't mind doing stuff that I don't really like, because there's some sort of higher purpose. Yeah, it obviously, the lack of engagement has an effect on people wanting to leave the company, even wanting to leave the region. I'll not go into details, but there's a sort of brain drain also happening in a lot of regions where people, like mostly certainly knowledge workers, don't like what they're doing. Yeah. Now, in that sense, as engagement is so low, if I look back at what we call the 3 primary KVIs, key value indicators, financial returns, customer satisfaction, team engagement, most of the companies, when I ask about value, or stakeholders or management people, even teams, product owners in Scrum, they will think about money, customer satisfaction. Nobody thinks about team engagement. Where my belief is that you should completely focus on team engagement currently, because engagement is so low. 85%. No other indicator of value has so much room for improvement. There is nothing else where you can improve like 50, 60, 70, 80, 85%. So team engagement should be front and center in everything that people do. And any sort of agile transformation. So again, it should be about people more and more and more. Now,
self-organization is hard without engagement. Yeah, so that's the also thing which helps a lot in any kind of transformation, even the agile transformation.
Yeah, again, sort of the idea, that first slide, people are naturally agile, and then process should follow that ability of people. So if you're doing Scrum and not minding the second aspect of Scrum, Scrum's DNA, self-organization, that Scrum just becomes, again, some sort of new commanding process where people think that they will be instructed by the process on what to do, rather than implementing Scrum as a frame that helps people find out what they should do best now. Yeah, and the low levels of engagement, it's not just for, let's say, the workforce in general, like people like you and I. The Boston Consulting Group, BCG, they've put out a survey. It's much more limited, by the way, than the Gallup Institute. It's only 5 countries in what they call the Western Europe. It also includes the US, by the way, and then China. And what struck me in this survey is not sort of it's not large scale, but it's again something that I see happening in organizations. So the Boston Consulting Group has been asking people in a management position about their role, their future, their belief, and so on. And it's scary in the sense that only 37% of current managers say that they will still be, or they want to still be a manager in, let's say, 5 or 10 years. So that is sort of, in a way, again, not good. They're doing something that they don't really want to do, which is, in that sense, not good. Nobody aspires being a manager anymore. And the number one dissatisfaction, and I think it must be a huge one, because it's the only dissatisfaction that, at least in the publicly available results of the survey, people are saying that, you know what, I'm called a manager, but I only have to implement decisions that are being made for me. So again, it means we have created organizations with layers, and at every layer, people only have to implement decisions from one layer up and one layer up. And imagine who's on the bottom. That's the poor teams. If every layer just sends through the pressure that they have to the next layer, in the end, it all comes down on the teams. And then talking about motivation, what Pierre just talked about, money. A lot of those managers say, I'm only doing this because I want to keep my salary, I want to keep my position. It's sort of like status, maybe I want to keep my company car and so on, which is not so brilliant. Now I've got a next question for you guys, and that's the following. So in that survey, people were also asked about, so this is not what you like to do. This is not the good way of being a manager. And they've asked those people, if you could make your own decisions, what do you think a manager ideally should be about? If it's not about just things. So are you okay taking another 5 minutes in the breakout room and think about 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe at least some sort of top abilities for a manager in today's complex world? What do you think is important for managers? By the way, I've also created a Mentimeter for that, so you can also fill that into the Mentimeter. Yeah, and the next one is open.
That's cool. I open the rooms now. Have fun. Oh, I have to assign some people, room 3, and I will assign Fred in room 6. Okay, lovely.
Great. I'm happy that you. I'm happy, Pierre, that you know about the survey, because there's not a lot of people. I was recently doing a workshop online with sort of international HR management of a large company, and had people from around the world, and of them, HR executives, only one person knew about that survey, and she even knew more about it than I did. She also said, yeah, you know what? And even with at least 10% of actively disengaged people, that might kill so much. So in that sense, so it was cool. But this should be something that HR executives know about, not?
Absolutely. That's my mission, one of my missions. So I launched Agile for HR 10 years ago. And I will launch it because Scott Emler asked me to do it. Because now I'm the advisor for people management for Discipline Agile. And I want to promote Agile for HR and also my book, an AO, Agile Organizations. But I guess we're following the same way. So the arguments you're using, I'm happy not being alone, having these views. So yes, and it was always my credo to avoid overselling a methodology. When you see in the eyes of people, oh, now we have a method and plug in and push the button and everything runs well and people are happy. And yes.
No.
But again, it's a good reminder. And I saw the two different polls and from Gallup, and you see you're expecting it's getting better, it's getting worse. And that's so I use as a sales argument. So what are you doing? I want to go from 14% people engagement, and maybe if I get the next 10 years to 16 or 20, this will be a good achievement. But yeah, HR is terrible. But they ask HR on a situation where IT was 20 years ago, a commodity for the organization.
Yeah, and only implementing decisions made by others. You would expect HR people to be like professionals in their domain, know about surveys, know about things, and then sort of wanting to help people. But they just implement existing procedures and processes and so on.
And I give you another argument. The company in Karlsruhe called DM, Drogeriemarkt. They are quite huge, very well, good working company. And I attended a keynote from the CEO. I say, oh, what again? We are using sociocracy model. I say, oh, yes, okay. Again, a CEO talking about how cool they are. In fact, they are very cool. They say, I'm at the service of the company. So we turn the pyramid. Say, oh, and we're using the Gallup Q10. It's the questionnaire from Gallup. So they're measuring engagement in this company.
Okay, cool.
And some very, let's say, more advanced company, you see people like in Frankfurt, you see a couple. Say, let's say more in Germany, because they want to be professionals. We want to follow this, and we have the hard metrics, and then they're using it, not a lot, but people, when you speak about Gallup, even in finance, in banking, they know what we're talking about. But then you have something else, which is the locked-in syndrome, meaning you understand in your brain, but when you have to go in practice, when you're under stress, let's say your reptilian is blocking you, and you're doing exactly the opposite. You say, what's happening?
It's what you do instinctively or intuitively, and it takes a while to sort of turn around your own instinct or intuition.
Yeah. So I had also a lot of fights with colleagues from the Netherlands. They say, oh, we're doing great Agile transformation at this bank. I say, yes, but this bank, I show all the 3 big events when people are asking, we reach the pinnacle. And people working there are still struggling the same way because you're doing the wrong way. Like end-to-end teams, but just in the silo.
Yeah.
And you see again.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I say that structure should follow the process. Because if you're implementing Scrum to deliver end-to-end value, that should give you a sight of working across silos and across departments.
Yeah, it's written there. Is business and IT working together. So it's not an IT. Yes. So people are coming back.
By the way, I do notice that at least Ilias, you're in Greece. It seems at least you have the official Agility Path picture.
In the background. Yeah. I'm trying to be aligned with to align my personal goal with my company's goal.
Okay, cool.
It's a reminder for me every morning.
Yeah. Okay, let me have a look. So some things coming in. Top abilities for, let's say, a modern manager: personal connect, sharing powers, empathy, yeah, delegating, mentoring, servant leadership. A gardener. I like that analogy. Okay, cool. Thanks. I was saying that, Elias, because what I presented as Agility Path was sort of the original Agility Path, where I had 3 value domains. After I left Scrum Talk, they added a 4th one, but I'm probably not flexible enough to get that anymore. That's what you get at a certain age. You can't grasp all of the new things anymore. Okay, thanks. Thanks for sharing. Shall I share what the people officially said as an answer to the review? Again, this is much smaller scale than Gallup, but I just like it because it resonates with me. It's what I see happening on the work floor. And what those people said, ideally management should be about helping people develop themselves, helping teams develop themselves, help create teams, give meaning to teams, motivate teams. Rather than telling people what to do, set goals that are actually achievable, not achievable, and make decisions rather than implement other people's decisions and eliminate obstacles. In that sense, that is really cool, because it means that people actually currently in a management position say that we should do Scrum. Because I don't know whether you recognize that those top 5 things, they're all implemented in Scrum. So that helped me pull up some old baseline that we had a long time ago, moving authority down the line. What about using Scrum to move authority down the line? Because even managers say that ideally, you should implement the accountabilities that we have defined in Scrum. Because in Scrum, we have somebody, product owner, setting goals and directions and so on. Rather than telling people what to do, it's for the product, it's for the product owner. The product owner doesn't manage the people, the product owner manages the product. Setting goals, helping people work towards goals rather than tasks and instructions. We've got in my paper, I've used Scrum Team as an alternative name to development team, by the way. But in a sense, you could see Scrum Team as the whole accountability of creating done increments. And how do they do that? They manage themselves. Within a sprint, nobody tells them what to do. They figure out themselves who should be doing what. And that's where we end up with the idea of self-organization. It happens within boundaries. One of the boundaries is the rules of Scrum. Organizing work in sprints. Sprints are, these days it seems, never longer than 2 weeks. Scrum officially said 4 weeks or shorter. A lot of teams are doing 2-week sprints. And the goal of Scrum is to create done increments, releasing increments of your product or your service. And you should look at product in a more broad sense also. And then Scrum Master there to facilitate people, help people. It's more like managing the environment. So in a way, all those 5 things, they are in Scrum. Scrum has implemented them. So the managers ideally say, you should do Scrum. And as those 3 accountabilities within Scrum, let's say in the system of Scrum, start figuring out how to do things together, while doing that, they should develop what I call new relationships with people outside of their system, meaning stakeholders and certainly consumers or users or buyers. Yeah, and then their role shifts also. Stakeholders is not about telling people what to do, but it's about providing feedback, sharing feedback, giving input to people from maybe the overall strategic direction that the company wants to take. Rather than again, minding the road, making sure the road is clear, and then helping people do a better job rather than telling them what to do. So in a way, we've got those accountabilities. So the management ideally maybe should not be one person, but we've got the accountability. We've got those management responsibilities actually defined in Scrum. So that's sort of good news. But it would mean that we move to a situation where management or leadership is not just one person. It's people sharing leadership, each from a different perspective. Product owner, the product, Scrum team or development team managing themselves, Scrum Master, environment, development of people, making sure the road is clear, stakeholders, and so on. And in that sense, I'm not going to stick to this too long, but again, it's an old picture that I pulled up. This is from my early days of Scrum and Agile. I'm thinking of a team and around the team, even around a product, thinking in terms of an ecosystem, not a hierarchical system, not a pyramid, not whatever. So that should be the idea, to use Scrum to, around a product, create an ecosystem that builds on roles, accountability, certain practices, that is tuned to your time and your context and so on. So, and that's also, you can't say who's the actual boss. It's shared accountability, it's separation of accountabilities, and that's sort of quite important. And again, to go back to the roots of Scrum, I don't know whether you know that, but the name Scrum comes from this old paper, 1986. Old people like Pierre and I think we remember. It was called the New Product Development Game. That's where we got the name Scrum from. And even in New Product Development Game, those two Japanese authors and business professors, they already said, sort of like what we do with Scrum, we don't say how an organization should look like. We can't say what managers should do, but we do know it's not what they used to do. And it's not how it used to look like. And in that sense, in that paper, it's in a way more clear than what we say in Scrum. Management should act as a sort of investor. Help people, support them, guide them, give them money, give them feedback, share feedback, but don't intervene, at least certainly not on a daily basis. I was already 1986. Imagine, we're still struggling with this a lot. And it's where the name Scrum comes from. And this is what drives me a lot. So people, it's working with people, it's respecting people, it's creating an ecosystem that is full of people, and people are not resources. Resources are money, budgets, whatever, maybe computers, I don't know, tables, whatever. People are people. We are not replaceable pieces of machinery. We are human beings. We've got personalities, we've got personal lives. You can't step into the office in the morning and leave all of your personal concerns and worries at home. That's not how we work. We are human beings. And that is important. Again, people are naturally agile and people are people. And that is important. And that made me think about the following. And again, let's take 5 minutes in the breakout room again. The idea of making people feel good at the company. So think back on the low levels of engagement. Where does that come from? What's the source of that? How can we help people overcome that? And it seems a lot of companies have these things like performance reviews, yearly or otherwise, or other ways to deal with people, HR types of things. So do me a favor and can you go in your breakout room and talk to each other and think back of maybe your last performance review, maybe how what sort of HR strategies does your company have in place, and how does that feel to you? Does that make you feel motivated? Is that, in that sense, increasing your level of engagement? Does it engage you? Does it inspire you? Do you feel like more committed to the company, going through all those HR procedures and those reviews and so on? Or is it the opposite? Or what does that do? So share some experience. In the breakout room, once you're in there, you will see also in the Mentimeter, I've got a next slide set up, checking in with you. How was your last yearly, whatever performance review or any types of thing? Did it motivate you? Yes, not really sure, or maybe no. But certainly take a couple of minutes in your breakout room.
Okay, change a little bit the room, so maybe you can mix a little bit the people around. Do you want I open the rooms now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, have fun, guys.
In the meantime, my Microsoft wants to upgrade, and I'm not going to do that.
I had my Mac doing this 2 hours ago, and I updated before. So I checked my box. So I restart my box to avoid any conflicts. I have a backup internet. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
So,
Do you live permanently in Heidelberg? Yeah.
So I came because SAP asked me to help them. It was 4 years ago. And they say, but you cannot be a freelancer. You have to have a company. So no way. So I created a company,
okay,
which is 1 people big with me.
Yeah.
and I like the city. And my kids, so I have 2 daughters. One is 27, the second is 16. So usually during the weekend, I'm going in France to see the youngest, mostly now in these troubled times. So
are you originally from France or from Luxembourg?
I'm officially French.
Oh, okay.
But my family is coming from Saarland, which is just on the border. And I grew up on the French-German border when we had also, we call it Mosel-Fränkisch, is a German dialect. So by getting older, and maybe after over a year working in Paris, I say, I'm German. I think like a German. I cannot work here. It's not possible. And I was very comfortable in Brussels.
Okay.
So Brussels was for me really a paradise because people are cool. They are very smart and they still have a fun way of doing things, which I liked a lot.
Okay, cool. So you speak French, German, English?
I reduce it. I used to speak 7 languages, but I'm fluent in 3.
Okay. Also notions of Dutch also? Or
Yes, kan niet verstand. Well, when you speak Dutch or speak Danish, Swedish, which are German-rooted languages, I get the point because I used to have a kind of level of abstractions. I can hear it. I see what you mean. Or when I read it, it's much more easier for me. So I was in Amsterdam. Just have to link again when you say G,
yeah,
like Van Gogh. So what is? Then I get it. Okay, I get the link. Right, I get the link. But I used to work a lot with people for Latin America, Spanish people. I was a lot in Middle East. And I completely align what you say about when you say people are agile by nature, absolutely agree with you.
And it has so much potential. If you acknowledge that, you can do so much more.
And I have funny quotes in my brain. One is a former team member, which has become a friend. He's a super expert in SAP. So you the SME guy by excellence, right? The SAP geek. And he was sitting in front of me. We share the same room. I say, "Oh, Pierre, I'm bored. You an asshole or whatever, because I'm working on very complex things and I make it live, and then I have 100,000 people bubbling it too, breaking down what I'm doing, and you bloody ship Agile." I say, it's maybe rude, but you're right. Should not be something you have to care about. Because Agile is a point that maybe just Agile coaches and Scrum Masters have to care about. But what we're bringing here is a new routine, a new way of work. So one of my tricks was always to say, guys, use Agile as an excuse to be who you are. And it's funny. So I started, 3-4 years ago, using clean language. And I ask always, when I come into a company, and what kind of Agile is your Agile? So I lose often all the consultants because, we want to implement SAFe or whatever. So, no, what kind of Agile is your Agile? What is the problem you try to solve? You are never implementing Agile at all. Even Agile transformation is meaningless because the goal is not to implement Agile. The goal is to solve problem. And is maybe bring, and through Agile is how we behave. Fascinating. It's going more and more that way, I believe. It's very good for our retirement plan, Gunther.
Yeah, I think the breakout rooms are closing.
They're coming back. No, it's lovely. It's interesting. Yeah, more and more people are looking this way. New topic is organizational agility.
Okay, welcome. Yeah, cool. Welcome back, everybody. Just sharing the screen a little bit. So you still have some time to enter what your last performance or whatever review did to you. No positive signs yet. Some people don't know. Few people said, no, it actually kills me or kills my motivation.
In my case, it made me quit the company.
Well, maybe I can add something to that. The problem is everywhere there's a mainstream saying you have to perform well and this will be rewarded. But what I've seen is that actually in the companies, this is not always the case.
Okay.
For different reasons. And therefore, it's not always that you have a boss who says, okay, I like this one, and if you could do this, I would appreciate it, and so on. That's, I think, a big problem.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So thanks for sharing.
I have a theory that in really a lot of organizations, the yearly goals or KPIs or something like this is to at the end summarize that not everyone could get a higher bonus. That's why you will not get it, and that's because we have some KPIs which we don't understand or don't take a look for a year. But now we will use them to to communicate and feel better with this what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah. I want to share something, and I think in a way you would recognize this. So what happened to me the last time I had to go through an official performance review was by the end of 2010. So that's 10 years ago. I'm sort of fortunate, but it still gives me headaches. I'm still not over it. That's how traumatic it was, and it has to do, Thomas, with a couple of things that you just said. So that was by the end of 2010 at a performance review. Now, officially, the performance reviews were decoupled from salary discussions. But I went through a performance review. It wasn't too great in my view. It was sort of I was judged as very average in a way. And then 1 or 2 months later, it turned out that they abused that to make sure I didn't ask for a raise in salary. It's like, okay, I thought those things were decoupled or disconnected, and now you're using it anyhow. That's sort of devious. But at that point in time, 10 years ago, that bad performance review also made me look back at my whole career and all those reviews and assessments that I had to go through. And I came to the very sad conclusion that most of those companies that I've been working for, in general, I mostly felt intoxicated. I didn't feel happy. I did work hard, but it didn't help me. Sometimes I felt tolerated, and even fewer times I felt sort of appreciated. Most of the times I was like, yeah, okay, you just should be happy that you're tolerating you. Be happy that you're able to be around. Sometimes I felt a little bit of appreciation, but what I was looking for is to feel motivated. And that almost never happened. It was one of the reasons why in 2016, I decided to not be part of any organization or fixed structure, at least not for the time being. And my motivation was a lot better. My income has decreased, but I feel a lot better and I'm able to pay my family. So, and that made me feel about, you know what? People should be valued. What makes people feel valued or not? And then just open questions, think about it for yourself. How often have you felt motivated? Or was it merely appreciated, maybe tolerated? Or often a lot of people Think again, 70–80% of the workforce is not engaged, not committed. That means they don't feel valued at the company, in my view. And what are we doing about that? And then this is all sort of 10 years old material, but it still resonates with people. Sort of thinking, what would make me feel good at work? And that would mean for me, I call it this triangle of valuation. How would I feel valued if I'm able to do something that I like to do, that I'm interested in? Yeah, that surely would help. If I'm able to do something that I like to do, and I also feel I either have a talent for, or people will help me develop my talent. And it's in a domain, it's sort of wider environment, a business that I like to work in. I don't know, maybe internet technology, maybe e-com, maybe the banking world, maybe the financial world, maybe schools, whatever. And that made me think. And then I don't know how to align those things. How can we help people discover this is something you want to do? Is this your interest? How can we help you develop in that? Is this sort of a wider context? If not, maybe you should consider changing jobs, go somewhere else, rather than just sitting around waiting all month long for your sort of paycheck virtually, and how to align those things. But these are for me sort of essential insights into working with people, working with human beings. Yeah, and in a sense it connects, and I think Pierre and somebody else already referred to it. Everybody knows by now, I think a lot of people should know at least, about Daniel Pink, his book Drive. It's more than 10 years old, I see Sylvia at least excitingly nodding. Daniel Pink has already described from research, social research, what is it that motivates people? It's again working with people, making people feel valued, yeah? Motivated, engaged rather than disengaged. What is it that motivates people? And that's important. Was one huge misunderstanding I believe there is in the world of Agile. It's a lot of people say that or claim that Daniel Pink said that money is not important. And that is not true. Daniel Pink has never said that money is not important. Daniel Pink has said money is important up to a certain point. It's not like money is not important. No, money is important, but up to the level, and Pierre described it in a way, up to the point where money is not an issue anymore. Meaning you can lead a reasonably comfortable life. You can pay your family, you can feed your family, you can pay your car, you can pay for your house. Money is not a worry. You come to the office and money, repaying debts, whatever, is not a worry. And that's where real motivation starts. So that's where real motivation starts. So it's not with extrinsic motivators, and even in knowledge work, in cognitive work, creative work, like we all do, I'm trying to motivate people with more money, more financial things, incentives, bonuses, and so on, even has the opposite effect. It becomes an addiction. It becomes toxic again, which is not really helpful. And then think back on what those managers said. I'm only going to be a manager because of my salary, my status, my career, my fancy car. That is an extrinsic motivator. If that is why you keep doing management, it's going to create toxicity. It's going to create a toxic environment. It is not healthy. Now, Daniel Pink has described what truly motivates people, and that's again, engagement, intrinsic motivation. They are really tightly connected. Intrinsic motivation, engagement is about autonomy, the ability to organize your own work, make your own choices. It's about what Daniel Pink called mastery. Now, I've replaced that with competence, and I didn't just do that because of that. I don't know, this year I published a little book about Scrum. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I've got it lying around, I'll show you. It's called 97 Things Every Scrum Practitioner Should Know. And for that book, I've worked with a Belgian friend of mine who is not only into Scrum, but also into neuroscience. And I was talking about the articles he was contributing to my book, because it's got 97 articles from people around the world. And my friend Stan said, you know what, Daniel Pink, it's sort of almost an oversimplification. If you look at the neuroscience, it's not just autonomy, that is important. It's not just mastery, or let's call it competence. It's not, maybe not mastery, but competence, being good at something. And that also means some sort of feeling of importance,
the idea of being good at something. And my friend said, you know what, the idea of purpose, we don't know that in neuroscience. He said, let's call it relatedness. Being related to something, being able to contribute to something. And what he also said is, it's the danger of the oversimplification. It's not just autonomy, mastery, purpose, or autonomy, competence, and readiness. It's also things very human of certainty and fairness. And Daniel Pink actually talks about fairness in the sense of being fairly paid, fairly compared to your colleagues, fairly compared to the market, and so on. But the idea of the feeling of being treated fairly. Now, I can assure you, in my last performance review, I did not feel treated fairly. That's not really helpful. And that idea of certainty in certain aspects, it's maybe longer term certainty, job certainty, it's knowing what's ahead of you, reliability in a way. It's something that our brains at least need, the idea of fairness and certainty. And this is what motivates people. It's not money up to a certain point, but beyond that point, it's the ability to organize your own work, to be good at something, be guided, be helped in development. Again, it often comes back to those things that managers say, ideally, this is what it should be about. So sort of the knowledge, the findings in a way are there. And obviously in Scrum, again, that people aspect, self-organization, autonomy, sort of mastery or competence, but certainly autonomy, engagement, commitment, intrinsic motivation has a lot to do with those people aspects. It's a lot in that idea of self-organization. Now, the way I think about self-organization is the following. So self-organization was mentioned already in the new product development game paper, 1986. Scrum thrives on self-organization. Again, Scrum is a process that builds on the self-organizing, the agile capabilities of people, of human beings. Scrum does no more than create a boundary around that. Organize your work in sprints, make your sprints no more than 4 weeks and maybe even shorter. And nobody's going to tell you what to do. But what we ask from you in Scrum is to try to create a deliverable increment by the end of the sprint or sooner, but certainly not later than by the end of the sprint. Work for that together. We'll make sure that you have all the skills and the cross-functional competence needed to do that. And the only minimal thing that we ask from you as Scrum people is to inspect and adapt upon yourself on a daily basis. We don't say how to do that. That's the only thing we say. We ask you to do a daily Scrum. So organize your work in sprints, and to make sure that within your sprint you keep in line with each other and you make the best possible progress. Make sure that on a daily basis you check in with each other and you replan your work for the next day. That's sort of the minimal level of self-organization defined in Scrum. It's what I call self-management or self-managing teams. In a lot of organizations, even that seems to be too difficult. Management can't stay out, or the teams do not have all of the skills and the competencies to create something that is really deliverable, that can be released, that has end-to-end value. In that sense, you might also stop doing Scrum again, because Scrum in itself is not going to help you a lot. And that often ends up with that idea of the first slide. Your structures should follow your process. I know a lot of large organizations that establish micro Scrum teams within silos, within departments. And nobody is minding the sort of what I call the synergy across those teams or over those teams. Often the product, the service, the end-to-end delivery, the end-to-end value stream, nobody's minding that. So what you're getting out of Scrum is rather limited. So Scrum starts with self-managing teams. If you're doing manager-led way of Scrum, it's not helpful at all. So that's what Scrum. And then when working with large organizations, I've worked with several teams that sort of started like flying. They really flew off. They really like highly collaborative, doing great stuff. And a lot of them, if not to say all of them, plummeted again. They fell back on the ground again. And why was that? Because they were not allowed to be what I call self-designing. In that sense, people outside of the team, even if they did not intervene on a daily basis, people outside of the team thought that they knew better who should be working at what team at what point in time. meaning they're allowed to organize their own work in a sprint. But if I, as a resource manager or a department head, think that, oh yeah, for the next sprint or the next project, you should be the product owner of the other team and you should be the lead of the other, or the developer or the whatever, that's not helpful. People's motivation goes down again. And that's why I bring this up. I believe the future should be also in self-designing teams. If people can organize and manage for their own work in a sprint of 2 weeks, they also have the capability, the creative, the insights, the intelligence to know what sort of skills do we need, how much of them do we need, when do we need them, when do we not need them anymore maybe. That's sort of the idea, is self-designing. And who knows what's on top of that. But I see most organizations still struggle with even the simplest idea of self-managing teams. So, and again, it's tied into, so the people aspect of Scrum, self-organization. What if we would spend the next 25 years of Scrum to keep what we've been doing, focusing on products rather than projects, thinking about cross-functional teams and expanding that idea and try to create an environment that motivates people again, in which people can engage again. And I'm pretty sure that Pierre knows these statistics. It's from the same research by the Gallup Institute. This actually works because the Gallup Institute has been comparing companies with a high level of engagement and companies with very low levels of engagement. And the results are quite astonishing in terms of business and customer outcomes. And think again in terms of what I call those key value indicators. Primary indicators of value, something with money for the company, for the enterprise, for the business, something with customers and customer satisfaction, meaning higher sales, higher productivity, so more stuff got done, more value got delivered, higher profitability, better customer metrics. But also think about the third aspect of primary value indicators, team engagement. In that sense, outcomes for the teams, for the employees, meaning people not leaving the company all the time, lower absenteeism, no longer term absenteeism, meaning less depressions, less burnouts, people more motivated, less turnover. In physical works, less safety incidents, higher quality in a sense. So focusing on team engagement actually works. So when I talked about those key value indicators, I told you that they were part of a feedback loop. So we talked about inspecting value. That's the first part. Inspection without adaptation is pointless in Scrum. So what are you going to do with your the result of your inspection? You're going to look at those key value indicators. You've measured them a couple of times, so hopefully you will see trends and patterns. And it's not about good or bad. It gives you an indication of a situation. If you're not happy with something, do something, meaning perform some form of adaptation. It's just Scrum, inspection, adaptation. And what is the adaptation? Again, sort of at the sprint review, starting with the question, how much value did this team potentially create in the sprint? And make sure that the review ends with an answer on the question, what can we do to help this team create more value in the next couple of sprints? And for the time being, my answer is based on my belief, humanize the workplace. Create an environment. Extend the idea of self-organization. Allow people to self-organize. Stay out of the way. Visit sprint reviews, and that's it. And at the sprint review, be collaborative. Be positive. Think along with the team. Don't judge them. Don't ask them to justify. Not helpful. So humanizing the workplace, again, 85% room for improvement. That is huge. No other value indicator has that room for improvement. And again, it's about engagement, motivation, self-organization. We know what motivates people. Autonomy, competence, relatedness. Create that sort of thing. And that helped me think about, you know what, employees who are engaged, committed, actually just care a lot more. In that sense, thinking about those three primary value indicators, what should you focus on? Money, customer satisfaction, team engagement. What I've been saying to a couple of companies, keep measuring customer satisfaction. Keep measuring something with money and finance, but above all, for now, focus completely on team engagement. Create an environment. Look, try to create an environment where people feel inspired, and then see the positive impact on those other things. So rather than focusing on money and customer satisfaction, focus on the environment. Work with Scrum Masters. And that's for me, hopefully the big potential of Scrum for maybe the next 25 years, focusing on that people aspect. So next to that process, empirical aspect, people aspect, self-organization, self-management, self-designing teams, and again, moving towards what I've called those ecosystems. And then the goal of a transformation should be to sort of gradually transform your pyramid structure into a combination of those product hub ecosystems. And that's my belief in the future.
That's a cool belief. Well, I see a lot of things that is really related to my own work. So it's sometimes a little bit weird. Say, how are we connected? And that's good, great presentation. I really like it. I was really thinking about you to involve you a little bit in Agile for HR in the next steps. Maybe you can present the thing, because people like also having tools in a manner of mirroring effect in a coaching manner. So help them give guidance to how far they want to go and what they want to do. So I'm not a big fan of key performance indicator, even not a fan of OKRs, which is for me the new KPIs.
Yeah, for me too.
And it's again weird. You agree too much with me. That's not usual. What happens?
No, I recently had people reaching out. Hey, Gunther, what do you think about OKRs? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes you read sort of inside stories about how things work at Google, and it's all not that rosy and shiny that we all think it is. Read interviews by people that leave Google. It's not a shiny workplace. So those OKRs are, like you say, Pierre, they're just a new name for the old school pressuring people, breathing down people's necks, pushing them, and so on. Yeah, I agree. But this is just what I wanted to share. This is what drives me in Scrum. Not just the process aspect, not just the product delivery or product development aspect, but also the people aspect. And I think we have good reasons to start focusing on that a lot more.
There's a lot of things to do in Germany because people love processes.
Yeah, and you know, it's because it connects me somehow with those people aspects and the OKRs or whatever process we could find as a good example here. Yeah, so it's not a problem with the process usually. Yeah. In my perspective, at least, you can do OKRs and it will be really useful helping people and such things. And you can do your OKRs and it could push people to you know, to their knees and you know, do something wrong. Yeah, it's like knife probably. Yeah, you can do sandwich, you can cut yourself, and so the things which connect some dots in my head now, it's like the human aspects of the processes is exactly this thing how we use the knife. Yeah. Yeah. If we care for those aspects, probably you can do OKRs, you can do I don't know, beliefs, bets, or whatever thing is useful in your organization. Yeah, but still, just think how you do it. Yeah, and actually, this is something I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, cool, but it sort of relates to the first slide I showed. So people are naturally agile. Process should build on that ability, and structure should follow that process. In that sense, anything you do around Scrum should respect, acknowledge, and reinforce even Scrum's DNA. And Scrum's DNA is not just empiricism, but also self-organization. So HR procedures, departmental structures, whatever. Really courageous organizations would rethink them based upon the fact that they're now doing Scrum.
Gunter, I have a question to this. Maybe we could make a little talk about that, because I really like the assumption that people are basically agile from the beginning, from the moment we are born. But still, I am finding some situation in an organization I am cooperating with. That it's like there is an organization for 12 years or whatever longer time they used this command and control. They say people, you just sit down, do what you are said, and work like this. People used to it. They live this way of thinking, and now here comes some, let's say, sorry, I'm an agile coach, so it's, let's say I'm talking for me. There is an agile clown who goes here and said, hey, we will do agile, you will be engaged, and something. And maybe we have any options how to work with that, because it's usually another part of changing the culture and taking people up from those those things they are used to.
Yeah, but changing the culture, you can't change the culture, and you can't increase intrinsic motivation. You can only create an environment where people find their intrinsic motivation again, and you can install practices, Scrum, from that idea. So and then practices and values and culture in a way go hand in hand. But practices are also needed, a tangible way of working. And like you said, a lot of people have been instructed for the past couple of decades. And they are not, in that sense, despite the fact they are naturally agile, it's not like they're suddenly going to act or use that agility in their professional workplace, because they have been forbidden to do that for several decades. And now we come in as agile coaches or Scrum coaches, and as Sylvie also nodding, and in a way they don't believe it anymore. They're suspicious, because every time we said it in the past that they can do that, and every time it went wrong, their heads were chopped off. So people don't believe us anymore. It's going to take a long time before we can turn that thing around. And the worst thing that often happens is that after, let's silly example, 2 or 3 sprints of self-organization, management still not happy with the results. Management like, you see, our people are not able to do that, and they start intervening again. And that just
not working.
Yeah, and that reinforces the idea with the teams. You see, Scrum was just the next hype. It was just another way of not being sincere about self-organization. So, and that's maybe Thomas, maybe an important job for an agile coach, sometimes to ask management to be patient. No, stay out. Give them time, please. We can't suddenly in 3 weeks undo 20 years of wrong instructions.
Oh, there is another tactic is give the dog a bone. So give to management a bone.
Okay, so they can handle or they do something they feel is working and important, and they not interrupt the team. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my tricks was to create an Agile team who is doing management. So you are the Agile team doing management. So what was one of the tricks?
Okay,
it wasn't simple. It worked, but it wasn't simple at all.
I think, Gunther, you're right about the values and principles. It's important. And I think with these practices, what we can establish with certain practices is to change and adjust their habits and to reinforce certain behaviors. And that's how we can help to establish a certain culture, Tomasz. If we include certain habits and behaviors that we practice every day, and basically adjust slowly with small experiments, etc., every day, And I think it's not enough if management or leadership is just, doing something else. Leadership is part of it, and they have a role model and other attributes that they need to help to create a generative culture, which basically helps to establish this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons why I like Scrum so much, because it is actionable. You can use it, it's clear, it's got a definition. It makes it more, for me, in that sense, not more simple, not necessarily more easy, but it makes it clear. It adds clarity.
It's just not clear for everyone. It's just clear more on a team level. It's not clear yet for management and other people. No. So for, let's say, a delivery team or an agile team, a Scrum team, it is relatively clear. Still, there's so many other practices that are part of it, right? And for many other roles around, and when you talk about scaled agile management, leadership, and other things, it's just not that clear. That's where some people struggle and bring more topics.
Yeah, and that is because in Scrum we have made the very conscious decision to not say how an organization should look like, and then help people. And that's sort of the third part of my first slide. Rethink your structures around Scrum. Although Scrum doesn't say how your structures should look like, because that is impossible to say. There's no answer to that. We can help people think about Scrum, and then our somewhat naive hope was that all the organizational problems would surface by doing Scrum, and people would address them, tackle them. But I think we've underestimated some people in the fact that they sort of wipe it under the carpet again and try to work around it. And so we thought, let's make problems very visible and transparent. And that will be a great invitation for management and leadership to start addressing them. But then they would prefer to twist Scrum and change Scrum rather than,
But there might be some instruction behind the Scrum values that they included in the Scrum guide that is basically something that also they need to see, okay, what is my value? What is my contribution to establish this environment and to let these values be alive every day?
Yeah. So when I work with large organizations, when I approach, I don't know how you do that, Pierre, but when I work with middle management and even higher management, I try to have a very open stance, a very open attitude, not threatening, meaning I'm not here to get you out of a job, because managing or management still, even in an agile environment, even in an enterprise that is based upon Scrum, is still something of value, but it's how you organize for it. And my attitude is towards those people, I'm here to help you rethink your role, rethink your position, and help you discover a new way of doing your job, and maybe even a new role. Why not? I'm here to help you to discover what you now should do differently, in the fact that you're working with self-organizing teams, organized team sprints, with reviews, with a product owner accountability for product owner accountable for value and so on. I'm here to help you find out that thing. But I noticed with a lot of certainly middle management people, if they have this very intrinsic caring for people, a lot of them actually still care for people. But it seems that as people climb the ladder, they're not supposed to do that anymore. They're not supposed to show emotions anymore. You have to be tough and a strong manager. Plus, a lot of them have made a sort of career. And often, I know a lot of them that would be great product owners or even Scrum Masters. But nobody wants to go there because it feels like a demotion. It feels like you would be demoted, not promoted, but demoted. You would lose money, you would lose salary, you would lose state, whatever. So we have a long way to go, because those people in themselves often really care for the workforce. But it seems that in their position, they're not allowed to do that anymore. They're not willing to go back to being part of the team because it's not up to their career path.
Yeah, that's a challenge. So I saw new things bubbling up, going in that way, meaning so we try to reduce the level of the different layers. So we reduce the size of the ladder, not having 10 levels, but maybe 2, 3. So in the arguments is you get close to operation to get access to the real data, not the interpretation of the data for your decision making. So this was one argument. And the second argument was, it was senior vice president finance. So very, very top on it. I say, if I give a budget to do something, that matters for you and the company, would you take it? If you and you keep your company car, your salary, and maybe your title, we don't care. You can keep it, doesn't matter. And you become somebody called a product owner. Would you like to do it? And you have 80 people, because I had 80 people in the call, I say, hell yes. So that's where we have, this is how far we can go. This may be a goal. Now I understand you have a culture which is slowing everything down. You cannot change in a big shot, right? So we have to go that way. So now we have people, so you have this middle management, you have a small switch, like splitting the roles in two parts, like people management and some kind of program manager, which is nothing more than a scrum master and a product owner. But we are not using the titles. We say, okay, as a people manager, and you bring all the rules of a scrum master. And as a program manager, you give all the rules of a product owner. But just there comes the point of scaling. Avoid scaling, because if you scale and you believe in scaling, you add more ropes in your ladder again. So try to be thin as possible. And here is your product is maybe the whole company. You have a different strategy. But it's a long run.
Yeah, and what I've seen in the Netherlands, at least, and I think probably, Pierre, you've also seen examples of that. So long time ago, the first 2011, 2012, I worked a lot with ING. That was before it turned into Spotify and so on, was just still just Scrum. Afterwards, following ING, a lot of companies not just started implementing or copying the Spotify model for whatever reasons, but a lot of them seemed to feel inspired to sort of fire the whole middle management layer. We're now doing Scrum, so let's fire all of the middle managers. But in the meantime, they had, like what I described, established mini Scrum teams in existing silos. They were disconnected. There was no alignment. And now management was just cut out of the picture. That really did not help.
Yeah, and they've also,
gradually taking them along, having real product owners and Scrum teams building products end to end, and then gradually rethinking middle management, helping people discover a new role. That's a very different story than just cutting out a couple of layers.
Yeah, and the same thing, you have now tribe leads, squad leads, just another word for a silo. And that's terrible. Hacking this.
Yeah, and for hierarchical power again.
Yeah. Vladimir's, do you have any insights? I know you should have, Shubaka, a lot of insights.
Definitely. What Thomas asked probably referred to your book, Agile Organization, because you perfectly describe how structure fights back. And then after 2 years with British Petroleum, my conclusion was that sometimes organizations deserve people and leaders they have. So pounds or whatever. And it really takes patience.
Yeah, but my book, I didn't refer to the book because Gunther mentioned we didn't come with a prototype of how the end is look like. And this is exactly what I've done. So it's not good. So I will be more like the evil and devil, but it's okay. It's the way that the group is working is you have to have opinion and we have to challenge opinions. But in the meanwhile, you mentioned VP. I saw very good things. It was a long time ago. I was leading a workshop with Accenture in Amsterdam, and it was people from Shell. And I discovered what Shell made. So, and I'm still inspired what Shell is doing in a very structured way manner is you want to have a position as a director, you have to showcase how much project you led from the beginning until the end. Not partially bumping in from the beginning until the end. These are your achievements in your careers. Ooh, that's old school, hard, but very, very interesting.
But I also want to praise them because it's never always just good or bad, because they create amazingly cross-functional teams. And the process of, researching new oil field that took before 2 years, thanks to cross-functional team, now takes 6 months. Imagine how much in cash that saves.
Yeah. I guess this is a good thing because you will have work maybe next year because we will say, Vladimir, can you come back because something is weird happening? And something bumping the doors and hitting the ground is helpful too. The problem if they hit the door each time and say, hey, here's the window. And I'm not looking on looking on the finger, not looking on the window. That's bad. So, but making mistake is part of the deal. It's just take longer.
As long as the mistake is not so big that you die from it, and you can still recover. Yeah, it's sort of that's really helpful. So small mistakes, okay.
Yeah, because this is how the team's working is. And I really like your presentation. It rings a lot of, yes, with my work indeed, but doesn't matter. But say the simple logic I wanted to add is I'm working on something is called the swarming principle, like the birds swarming. And when you go deep in the idea of swarming is it works with simple rules. So you have limits. And so you think you can relate everything to Scrum. Because Scrum is working because we have super, super simple rules. And these rules has to be simple because what you're selling is not the methodology, is how people are working together. So the rules, and if you over process the rules, so you will have to hire somebody who's caring about the rules and no longer about the people. And then you're getting in the bad side. Rules have to be simple.
It's also why in my little book long time ago, it's 2014.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah, I described for the first time the Scrum values again. And then also described how Scrum actually is more about behavior than it is about process. Because Scrum only creates a frame within which people are going to interact, collaborate, and explore and have dialogues and so on. Scrum does no more than creating a frame to sort of structure that and give that a little bit of direction.
And here comes the wording challenge when people try to hijack the wording. When they say I have a framework, it's more like a chocolate box. I pick just the white ones, so I use like with XP, right? Now we say you have to embrace all the thing. Is a scaffolding, is the boundaries, the structure. So you have to embrace everything and not a part of it. So I love when people say we are doing dailies, but this is every Thursday. What? Dailies means daily, not every Friday. That's weekly. And
the problem indeed, like you say, Pierre, with hijacking words is that some smart business people started calling whatever they're doing a framework because, it seems that Scrum is very successful. They call themselves a framework. Let's do that too. And it ruins the idea. It completely ruins the idea. Scrum, a framework, a frame which has room to breathe, to think, to innovate, to do things differently. It's imperfect by design. And then everybody calls whatever they do a framework nowadays.
Yeah, I liked once, it was a long time ago, it was Christian Mattis, an amazing trainer from Munich. And he say, what we're doing is just changing the habits or the routine. We are replacing the usually business as usual routine with Scrum. We are just changing the routine. Is a beat. And that's the beat. So when people ask coming to you, should we deliver every sprint? Yes, maybe, but you can deliver once it's done, right? You can deliver every day or every 10 milliseconds. So it's this understanding. And nowadays, with a lot of years of background, and you've always believed, when I came back in Germany, I believe I'm going to the Agile paradise because I met so very clever and smart people and say, after a year, say, what happened here? It's wasteland. What's happening? And everyone is applying the process and paraphrasing what maybe Ken said in a different angle and maybe what Jeff said in a different angle. See, but what are you thinking? What is your understanding of it? Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. It's weird. We're so much aligned. That's weird. Ooh.
Maybe it's a good sign. You never know.
I'm not used to.
Okay, cool. Okay, I hope you all had a good time. I hope you got something out of it. Salif, I wanted to share a little bit what I mean with humanizing the workplace. Also, why it's important and why I think that aspect of Scrum is wrongly under-highlighted.
I really believe that you're touching a point which is the future of Agile. And there is a lot of people thinking, I'm in groups about organization design and human power, this kind of thing, but very scholars. And this is really the new trend. And companies are asking. I will ping you for the things we were to try in the US as remote workshops. And because people are asking for this kind of thinking. Okay. Mostly in what we say, the new normal, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I will also share the slides with Pierre and probably on the meetup group too, so you can download them, right?
I will share it with the meetup group. You can already see this conversation on the YouTube channel, and I will improve it. So usually I cut myself out, which is not my show. But I love to talk. I'm sorry for that. So do you have any, Henrik, any last words, any questions do you have left? You're done. Shaheen, you're still here? No. Klaus?
Yeah, one question. He spoke about Gunther, you spoke about an article. Did you publish an article or is it misunderstanding?
No. What I talked about. Let me show you. This is a book.
A book. Okay.
So this book is called 97 Things Every Scrum Practitioner Should Know. It's got articles from all those people around the world. Okay. And there's one guy. He's called Stan de Knut, and he wrote a couple of articles about connecting Scrum with neuroscience.
Oh yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of articles in the book about that. Yeah.
Very well. Do you have last questions? No? So I say then goodbye, because meaning I will stop the recording, I will stop the live streaming, but I keep the channel open if